It's a beautiful morning in the neighborhood. Okay, Nix, go to the bathroom. And off he goes, racing through the neighborhood, until he finds the perfect spot.
Welcome to Yoldai's Pet Corner.
Beavers are famous for two things: building dams and absolutely refusing to mind their own business. Turns out, that second trait once saved a human life. This is a true story, backed by medical records, eyewitness reports, and animal behavior science. And what makes it remarkable isn't speed or strength. It's that a wild animal chose contact, on a freezing river, when instinct should have said run. Here's what happened next. Our story begins in Daugavpils, Latvia, during the cold late autumn of 2013. This city, the country's second largest, sits on the banks of the Daugava River, a major waterway that flows through Eastern Europe. As October drew to a close, the nights grew longer and significantly colder, setting a dangerous stage for the events that would unfold. One evening, a local man was making his way home. He was walking alone along a dimly lit path near the river, a route he likely knew well. He had been drinking, and his judgment was impaired. The air was sharp and frigid, with the temperature dropping fast toward freezing. In the biting cold, his body was already struggling to maintain its core temperature. At some point during his journey, the combination of alcohol and the encroaching cold became too much. He stumbled and collapsed near the riverbank, losing consciousness almost immediately. He was now completely vulnerable, alone, unconscious, and exposed to conditions where deadly hypothermia can set in within minutes. Medical experts would later confirm the gravity of his situation. If his body temperature had dropped just a few more degrees, survival would have been all but impossible. His life was hanging by a thread, dependent on a miracle. At some point during the night, a flicker of consciousness returned. The man woke briefly, disoriented by the biting cold and the strange, solid weight pressed along his ribs. It felt heavy, real, and alive. He held his breath, every nerve on high alert in the frozen hush of the Latvian riverbank. The air was so still he could hear the faint crackle of ice forming at the water's edge. His mind, clouded by exhaustion and the creeping tendrils of hypothermia, struggled to make sense of it. At first, he dismissed the sensation as a hallucination, a phantom warmth conjured by a body desperate to survive. He was convinced it was just the cold, and his fading strength playing cruel tricks on his perception. But the pressure was insistent. He forced his heavy eyelids open, and his gaze fell upon a shape outlined in the thin, ethereal moonlight. It wasn't a dream. A wild Eurasian beaver was pressed directly against his torso. Its dense, oily fur was a tangible barrier against the night. There was no aggression, no sign of fear or threat. It was simply there. A profound, life-giving heat began to soak through the layers of his jacket, a stark contrast to the icy ground beneath him. As the man drifted in and out of a semi-conscious state, he was vaguely aware of the creature's movements. The beaver adjusted its position repeatedly, small, deliberate shifts, as if finding the most effective way to share its warmth. Each careful nudge maintained the vital contact, a silent, instinctual act of preservation. Just before the first light of dawn broke the horizon, the comforting weight eased. The beaver lifted its head, paused for a moment as if assessing the situation, then slipped silently toward the river. It vanished into the dark water, leaving behind nothing but a damp, warm imprint on his coat, and a story that defies explanation. To understand just how extraordinary this encounter was, we need to step back and look at the fundamental nature of a beaver. This behavior is profoundly, almost impossibly, unusual. Beavers are wild prey animals, a species that has survived for millennia by being hardwired for caution. They are extremely wary around humans, viewing us not as companions, but as potential predators. Their entire sensory world is built to detect threats, and their instinctual response is to bolt at the slightest disturbance, a snapped twig, a sudden shadow, the scent of a large mammal. Yet here, in this critical moment, retreat didn't happen. The beaver didn't just tolerate a human presence, it actively closed the distance. Biologists who study these animals immediately note why this stands out. A beaver's life, especially in the cold, is a constant battle against the elements. They are highly sensitive to heat loss and shifting environmental conditions, Cold water, their very element, relentlessly strips warmth from their bodies. The wind that whips across the riverbank robs them of the rest. To survive this, they have evolved a remarkable toolkit: incredibly dense underfur for insulation, covered by oily guard hairs that create a waterproof barrier. But their most critical survival tools are behavioral. Inside the lodge, they form tight huddles, sharing body heat. With their kits, physical contact is constant and life-sustaining, and when they must venture out, their trips are short, efficient, and purposeful, minimizing time exposed to the cold. The textbook response to danger is unambiguous. Typically, a beaver sensing a nearby human will execute a dramatic warning, a powerful tail slap against the water's surface. This explosive sound alerts every other beaver in the area to the potential threat. Immediately after, it will dive, seeking the safety of the deep and putting as much distance as possible between its body and the perceived danger. This is the classic flight response, a deeply ingrained instinct designed to minimize risk and exposure at all costs. Flee first, ask questions later. What's so profoundly rare here is the complete inversion of that instinct. Instead of fleeing, the beaver initiated contact. It directed a heat-saving, affiliative behavior, one normally reserved for its own family, toward a human. This wasn't a random act. It was a choice, likely shaped by a unique convergence of factors. Perhaps simple curiosity overrode fear, or maybe prior neutral encounters with humans in the area had taught this specific animal that not all people are threats. Most compellingly, it could have been a cold, hard energy calculus. In the freezing night, the warmth radiating from the man's body represented a resource too valuable to ignore, where staying conserved more energy than fleeing. To truly appreciate this, picture the beaver's home. Inside a winter lodge, the world is defined by touch. Family contact is constant and essential. Kits, vulnerable to the cold, press deeply into the warm bodies of the adults. The adults, in turn, groom and settle against one another, sharing precious body heat within an insulated chamber that stays drier than the pond and significantly warmer than the frigid outside air. These are the small margins that mean the difference between life and death. This is the beaver's definition of safety and warmth: close contact with its own kind. In the field, researchers meticulously document these behaviors. They log approach distances, time spent on site, postures, and vocal cues, cross-referencing everything with temperature, wind speed, and weather conditions. When they use thermal imaging, the science becomes visually undeniable. Every point of contact glows with shared warmth, a clear reduction in heat loss to the environment. The beaver's choice to lie on the man was unusual, yes, but it was rooted in the fundamental physics of thermoregulation and a lifetime of learned context. It applied a known survival strategy to a completely novel situation. The ultimate takeaway is simple, yet profound. This was a rare event, but it was not a random one. It was a familiar, instinctual strategy, using physical contact to conserve vital energy, applied in a completely unexpected direction. It forces us to reconsider the boundaries we draw between instinct and decision-making in the animal world. When we observe wildlife, we must respect their distance and minimize our disturbance. But we can also let the science explain the incredible adaptability that allows for moments like this. By morning, passers-by spotted the man and called emergency services. When paramedics arrived, they found something that stopped them cold. The beaver was still there. Only when rescuers approached did it finally retreat toward the river. The man was rushed to the hospital and treated for early-stage hypothermia. Doctors later stated that prolonged heat contact likely prevented his body temperature from dropping to fatal levels. This wasn't affection, it was thermoregulatory behavior, a biological response to conserve warmth in extreme conditions. Fur traps air, contact slows heat loss. Inside a lodge, stillness saves energy. But here's the key point. The beaver could have left. It didn't. In wildlife behavior studies, staying in a dangerous, unfamiliar situation isn't accidental, it's a choice. This story raised questions scientists still discuss today. Was the beaver responding to heat loss? Movement? Distress? And more importantly, is this kind of response truly rare, or have we simply not been paying attention? In part 2, the animal didn't just stay close, it put itself between danger and a human child. Hey, I hear Nick's coming. I wonder what he's up to. Hi, Nix.
Hi, Dad. I love your stories. And if you at home enjoy them too, please, pretty please hit like and subscribe. It makes me so happy.
So, in part 1, a wild beaver did something it shouldn't have done. It stayed. Now, the animal in this story didn't just stay close. It stood its ground. And what makes this one different is that it happened in one of the most dangerous wildlife environments on Earth. Kruger National Park, South Africa, July 2016. This vast expanse of protected land, larger than some countries, is a theater of raw, untamed nature. It's a place where the ancient drama of predator and prey unfolds daily, governed by instinct and survival. In July of 2016, a safari group was making its way through this iconic landscape. The region is renowned for its apex predators, powerful lions, elusive leopards, and other formidable hunters that command respect and caution. The open-sided vehicles offer an unparalleled, immersive experience, but also a stark reminder of the thin veil between civilization and the wild. Among the passengers was a young child, seated near the edge, their small frame a stark contrast to the immense wilderness around them. For the tourists, it was a journey of wonder. For the guides, it was a constant exercise in vigilance. At one stop, the lead guide's relaxed demeanor vanished. His hand shot up, signaling a halt. His eyes were fixed on the dense bushveld. The casual chatter in the vehicle died down as the guides noticed something deeply unsettling. A shift in the air, a tension that only seasoned experts can detect. A pride of lions had entered the area. This wasn't a lazy, sun-drenched pride resting in the shade. These were hunters on the move. Their powerful muscles rippled under tawny coats as they slunk through the tall, dry grass, their movements synchronized and silent. They were moving with intent. Every step was calculated, their collective gaze fixed forward. This wasn't a casual patrol of their territory, it was the focused, coordinated advance of a hunting party. And their path was converging with the now stationary safari vehicle. The tourists held their breath, a mix of awe and primal fear gripping them as the distance between them and the predators began to shrink. The situation was escalating from a spectacular sighting into a potentially dangerous encounter. As the vehicle remained still, the lions shifted focus. Their initial assessment of the large metal object seemed to conclude it was no threat. But something else had captured their attention, something far more interesting. The air grew heavy with unspoken tension, a palpable shift in the predator's collective gaze. It was not on the adult passengers, who sat frozen, understanding the gravity of the moment. The lion's interest was directed with an unnerving precision. It was on the child. Small, still, and silent near the vehicle's open side, the child represented a different kind of stimulus, one that triggered a primal, deeply ingrained instinct within the pride. This wasn't play behavior, nor was it simple curiosity. It was coordinated movement. The pride began to fan out, each member moving with a fluid, synchronized purpose that spoke of countless hunts. They were communicating without a sound, using body language to encircle their target. This was the chillingly efficient calculus of a hunt beginning to unfold. And then, unexpectedly, a massive African buffalo bull stepped forward from the dense brush nearby. He was a solitary figure, a mountain of muscle and horn breaking the tense tableau. He emerged not with a charge, but with a deliberate, measured calm that was somehow more commanding. He was alone. Buffalo are prey animals, a staple in the diet of any lion pride large enough to take one down. But they are also, pound for pound, among the most dangerous animals in Africa. Their reputation isn't earned because they hunt, but because they defend. They are masters of survival, known for their intelligence, memory, and an unyielding refusal to be easy prey. An attack on a buffalo is a gamble, even for a lion. This bull, assessing the scene with an intelligence that defied simple instinct, positioned himself directly between the lions and the safari vehicle. He didn't just wander into the space, he claimed it. He drew a line on the savanna floor, a clear and unmistakable barrier. His body became a living shield, a declaration that any approach toward the vehicle would have to go through him first. The standoff had begun. African buffalo do not typically protect other species. Their defensive behavior is usually reserved for calves, injured herd members, encircled companions. Yet this bull did not retreat. He lowered his head, stomped, and held position. The lions stopped advancing. To understand this extraordinary moment, we have to look at the biology of survival. Biologists call this coalition defense behavior, a sophisticated strategy where the strong stand their ground to protect the weak. For African buffalo, this isn't just instinct, it's a calculated social contract. When fleeing would expose a vulnerable member, like a calf or an injured adult, the herd's calculus shifts. They form a wall of horns and muscle, a fortress that even apex predators are reluctant to challenge. This collective strength is their greatest evolutionary advantage, turning potential prey into a formidable unified force. But this defense is almost exclusively reserved for their own kind. So what's truly unusual, what makes this a scientific anomaly, is who the buffalo assessed as vulnerable. It wasn't a member of its herd, it was a human child. This is where the story moves from animal behavior to something far more profound. The bull wasn't simply reacting to a threat, it was making a complex assessment, one that crossed the species barrier in a way that science struggles to fully explain. The question isn't just what the buffalo did, but why it perceived the need to do it at all. The child was still. In the face of approaching danger, there was no sudden movement, no sound. Small. The child's size, relative to the adults in the vehicle, created a visual signature of youth and helplessness, silent. The absence of noise completed a powerful triad of sensory cues. Those specific cues, stillness, size, and silence, mirror the exact signals that trigger protective instincts in buffalo towards their own at-risk calves. A lost or threatened calf will often freeze, its small quiet form a universal distress signal within the herd. The bull wasn't confused, he was responding to a deeply ingrained biological script. In that moment, the child's vulnerability spoke a language the buffalo understood. It was a powerful cross-species recognition of peril, prompting an act of deliberate, controlled protection. He wasn't defending a human. He was responding to a perceived calf in danger. For several minutes, the standoff continued. The buffalo did not charge. He didn't flee. He simply stayed. Eventually, the lions disengaged and moved off. Only then did the buffalo step away and rejoin the herd. The safari guides later described the moment as deliberate, controlled, protective. The beaver conserved warmth. The buffalo controlled space. Different behaviors, same principle. When something vulnerable was at risk, they stayed. Sometimes survival isn't about escape. Sometimes it's about standing still, until danger decides to leave. Speaking of heroes, here come my heroes. Hey, enjoying our stories? Buy my dad a coffee. Thanks. On behalf of myself, my pups, and my dad, we thank you for watching.
Please remember to like
and subscribe. We get bones.
Christmas may be over, but you know what isn't? Cats and dogs still freezing, still hungry, still waiting. This winter, your local animal shelter needs help more than ever. Please donate today and help keep them warm, fed, and safe.